Hello and welcome to our webinar, Quick and Easy Ways to Personalise Pre-Made Resources in Clicker. My name's Katie and I'm a Senior Education Consultant here at Quick Software, and I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleague Pauline. After many years in teaching, Pauline now works as part of our curriculum team and is responsible for creating many of the Clicker resources that you will find in Learning Grids, which we will be exploring in our session today. Today's session is being recorded and you'll all be sent the recording link later. This gives you the chance to watch the recording back, slow it down and potentially follow along with it if you've already got Clicker in your school. If you've got any questions during the webinar, please put them into the Q&A box because our colleague Jo is ready there to answer any questions that you might have during the session. For this session, I'm going to be showing Clicker on my laptop, but all of the Clicker grids and activities that I'm going to show you will also work on your iPads and Chromebooks if you're using any of the 3 Clicker apps that are available as well. So over the next 30 minutes, Pauline's going to be drawing on her teaching experience to talk about how many of the easily accessible and ready-made Clicker resources can be quickly personalised to not only save teacher time, but also meet the needs of the learners within our classrooms. We're going to be looking at 2 different topics in the session. First of all, a focus on younger learners and then moving up to older primary learners as well. So Pauline, let's start by thinking, why do you think it's so important for teachers to be able to adapt and personalise curriculum resources?
Well, in a class of 30 or more children, you have many different learning styles, different past experiences, different starting points, different interests and abilities. And so each child needs to feel success and progress. So this is a huge task for teachers. I remember when we used to say to our student teachers, people can stand at the front of the room and teach, but that doesn't mean that the children are learning. And they really, children need a personalised learning journey. For 11 years, I was a teaching deputy head of a school in a very deprived area. We had 50% of children with English as additional language and 45% of children had special educational needs. Now, we became an outstanding school because of the progress every child made. And we achieved that through having high expectations, but also a personalised approach to our curriculum, where we aimed for every child to have the tools and support that they needed for every lesson. So we tailored the task so that every child could achieve or exceed the expected outcome. And I found that if a child felt proud of their learning, then they would strive for more challenges, and then this drove progress. So this is why I'm passionate about personalised learning. But from experience, I know that this poses a mammoth task for teachers. So I was excited when I saw all the resources that we have on Learning Grids. Teachers can easily use the ready-made resources instead of spending hours searching and making resources. And you can usually find a group of resources around a topic on Learning Grids, usually whatever you need. So the different sets in the group are the same graphics, they use the same sentence structures and the same vocabulary, but with different levels of support. So these resources around one topic can save teachers a lot of time. So, for example, I really like the Great Barrier Reef bonds. So the reader book is an ideal starting point. I think I would use this as a PowerPoint to introduce the topic to the class. There are many then resources attached to this book that immerse the children in the vocabulary, the content, and help them to overlearn the information. And these amazing pictures are also in the talk set. And I would use this to jog children's memory so they can recall the information that they've heard or they've read. And their recordings could then also be used as a plan for writing. So then thinking about writing, you've got a sentence set and a connect set, and it helps children to write the accurate sentences. So, for maybe my low ability year 4s, writing 9 accurate sentences about a topic is an amazing achievement. So yeah, and we've also got resources that would extend more able writers too.
Brilliant. So let's think about a science lesson, and we'll start with our younger primary learners, a Key Stage 1 class, and think about some of the ways that you might personalise that for the lessons going on within your classroom.
Okay, so I thought I would focus on the planning and resourcing a practical magnetism lesson. So at the start of the session, I like to give the children a clear understanding of why and what they're learning. So I would set up a scenario, for example. So I've created this onto a clicker board instead of a PowerPoint, so that actually Clicker can read this aloud, so it makes it more powerful.
Okay, so we'll just click on the text box. You can find the speaker button along the top.
Dear Class 7, my name is Taylor and I work in the recycling plant in Northampton.
Yeah, so they're going to be predicting, carrying out the practical, and then recording their findings of what's magnet and what's not magnetic, and actually then create a letter to this company tomorrow in the English lesson. So I went to Learning Grids and I typed in magnetism as a search, and I've decided to look at Magnetism Investigation Connect set for my special needs children. So this original may be suitable for some children, but I would change the grid colour because I had an ADHD child who would actually find this too stimulating.
Okay, so for any changes, we're going to go to the bottom left-hand corner and we're going to go to Edit Clicker Set. So Pauline wants to change the grid colour here. I can see it's currently red. I click on my colour palette, I can choose perhaps a much paler colour there for you.
Yeah, brilliant. And straight away when I open the set, I noticed the drawing pin, and actually I've got some characters that would be too tempted by that. So let's change that to a drinking straw.
Okay, so we'll click in the cell where drawing pin is, and I'm going to delete that drawing pin text and add in drinking straw. So I've changed the text. I now want to change the picture to find the matching visual image. So I can go into my picture icon just here, and Clicker's already found for me in its image bank that matching picture to go with that vocabulary.
Yeah, brilliant. I also want to add 3 more resources as well. So a coin, feather, and scissors, so that we can have that discussion of 2 different materials.
Okay, so we can click into our text box and add in coin, feathers and scissors. Or was it just one feather? We wanted a feather, didn't we? There we are.
Thank you. And can we then picturise those the same
We
as
can.
the others?
So rather than finding each individual image like we did for the drinking straw, this time we're going to find those 3 images at the same time by going to our picture icon, choosing Picturise. And if I picturise this now, it's going to pop in all of those new picture images for the text that I've just added in.
Brilliant. So I've made those changes for the first one, but we're going to use the second tab later on. So instead of creating this again in the second tab, these changes, I'm actually going to duplicate this grid because that's a much quicker way of doing it.
Yeah, so I can go over to my grids on the left hand side, and because Pauline wants to duplicate the one that we've just made, I'm going to click the duplicate option, and it's copied that exact same grid now below the original.
Okay, so if we can call this one results this time.
Okay, so this time we're going to rename and we're going to call this one results.
And then the first 2 cells need to be in past tense. So I found out that.
So we'll just click in the text box again and we'll pop in I found out. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. And let's get rid of the one that we don't want because that'll be confusing.
So the bottom grid here now, we're going to delete this option. So we've got our prediction and our results tab now.
Okay, brilliant. Now, I would actually print this out because they are labels and they would be brilliant for my EAL child who's just joined the class and doesn't know these names. Actually, I'd print it out, chop them up and stick them onto the actual items just to help that tracking and that learning that way. So ideal for that. Some of my children need to work on talking in sentences rather than writing. So I'd have this showing, but then I would ask them to predict and talk about what they're going to do using the voice notes.
So along the top ribbon, we're going to use our microphone icon, open up our sound recorder, press the red record button. I think that the drinking straw will be magnetic. Press stop and done. And there's my little voice note stored in my writing page.
Brilliant. So now I'm happy with this resource. I would use a snipping tool to take a screenshot of the grids and paste it as many times as I could onto a page so that I can print them out. This means that I've got a backup if my school internet is haphazard. And I would also use them later on as well for children who maybe they can cross and tick this if they're not ready for writing at all. And then the rest of the class would be identifying 10 items they can see in the room and drawing or listing them and recording their prediction. So then moving on to thinking about the testing section of the lesson, I searched for fair test on learning grids. And I found the fair test planner. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, now I liked this, but I don't want to go deeply into what we'll keep the same. So I actually changed that to focus on how we're going to carry out the test.
Okay, so we can simply click into the text box and we might type in here instead.
So this would be on the board and I would talk through this with the children and fill it out as we go along and as we find the answers together. And then as it gets on to the how we will carry out the test, I would actually put numbers in the cells as well to help the children to track where they are and what they're doing. Yep, brilliant. So yeah, that's a quick one for us that we got out. So now for the fun bit, my class would actually carry out the test. So this plan would be on the whiteboard for them to refer to, and they'd be filling out either on slips of paper or in their books or on clicker, depending on what their needs were. So when they finished testing, we'd all come together to discuss findings, and I can address any misconceptions or move thinking on. So for writing down their scientific findings after they've tested, my special needs children would use the second tab of the Connect set that we were looking at earlier. And I might, though, extend some of them and ask them for a sentence about why they think they've got those results. And so then that means they can actually use the predictor or other document tools on the web.
Yeah, so let's turn the predictor on along the top ribbon. Really useful tool for helping children build up their writing. So I'm going to turn this on and I might start my sentence in my science experiment. So I can move through adding my letters in. Clicker's then going to start to predict. The great thing about the predictor, not only do I have words appearing for me to select from, I can also do a right click on the words.
Science.
So it's going to speak that aloud to me, so I can make sure that I found the right word there in those options. And then I've also got all of my words and clusters of words in my bank at the bottom that I can then insert into my document, as well as having the predictor working.
Brilliant. So searching again on learning grids, I found magnetism investigation word bank. And this is ideal for the majority of my class. So I know some children would actually find the layout of this first tab quite tricky to follow. So in edit view again, I would delete the last cell because we can look at that when we're writing the letter tomorrow. And I would also change that into just one column.
Okay, so we can go into our columns option here and we can have that all in one column.
Brilliant. And then I would also colour the cells so that children find it easier to track the process that they're going through.
Okay, so if I click into the cell and then I've got my colour palette option again, So I can choose whichever colours I want here to move my learners through those different cell options.
Brilliant. I'd also print this out because for some children, they can have this on the table and work paper-based in their books. Some children would have these actually cut into slips and put into their books as well, so they can write underneath each one. So all this scaffolding means that actually the majority of my class are supported and will be able to work independently, even my lower ability groups. And so then that means I've got more time to work with my more able to extend their scientific writing and vocabulary. So I then found the investigation frame 3 word bank on Learning Grids. And I really like the conclusion tab for, again, structuring the children's writing up. But to adjust this, I'd want my prediction was to be the first cell.
Okay, so we go back into edit and we're going to remove my prediction was from where it currently is, and we're going to pop it at the start and we're going to put it into brackets because we want all of those words appearing in the same cell. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. And also I'd have these results, or my results, and take off were and put a colon, because then that means that actually that could be a list if children choose to write it that way. So I've planned and resourced this lesson in about 20 minutes, which is a big bonus, and it saved me a lot of time. So hopefully at the end of the lesson, the children have gleaned the information, vocabulary and content that they need to be able to write a letter to the recycling company tomorrow in the English lesson. So the next stop in my PPA is to look on Learning Grids to see if we've got any letter writing set for tomorrow's session.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've planned our science lesson for our younger children. Let's move on to our older primary or key stage 2 learners and perhaps look at an example of a literacy lesson. Maybe we're looking at a class story. Let's go for The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Okay, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to adjust the resources in the literature section to create exactly what you need. So in this case, I'll be adapting the pre-existing Charlotte's Web sets for my text. So I want my children to focus in on the character of Lucy so that they can write a diary entry from Lucy's point of view about when she walked into the wardrobe and discovered Narnia. So I opened Charlotte's Web character study about board. Brilliant. And I really like this because the smaller boxes could be used as a personality trait, and then the bigger boxes could be used for children to note the evidence that they find in the text that supports it. So let's adjust this one. So first of all, I would drag a picture of Lucy from the internet into the centre.
Okay, so we're going to hop over to Google and we found our images. So I've got a list here of all of my Lucy and Narnia images. So all I'm going to do is click and drag the one that I want, and I'm going to move that down my page into Clicker, and I can simply drop it into whichever box that I want it in.
It's just so quick and looks smart. Yeah, brilliant. So some children would work with this as it is now, and that's fine. But for some children, I actually want to give them the trait so then they can find the evidence in the text. So yeah, courageous, inquisitive. And then the children, yeah, can type their answers into the empty boxes. Or if I wanted more cells, I can use the toolbar on the left-hand side to drag in some more. Or you can copy and paste using the keyboard shortcuts and add another trait and things like that. So you can actually personalise it. So some children would take a long time to type the evidence, and I want this activity to be quite a quick recap at the start of the writing session. So I would actually insert recording buttons as well for children who can record their evidence verbally then.
Yeah, so we can just use the menu on the left to click and drag those voice note record buttons on, and I can join these together with the different traits that I want my children to describe.
Yeah. So now we've started to understand how Lucy thinks, I want to develop children's descriptive and adventurous language about the two different settings, the wardrobe and Narnia. So they can be then used in their diary entries. So I looked on Learning Grids in settings, places, and I just opened the first one that was there. So for this again, let's drag in a picture of Lucy entering the wardrobe for this.
Okay. So we'll go back to our search and we will find our Lucy entering the wardrobe image. I'm going to do exactly the same and take this down into Clicker and just drag and drop that in.
Brilliant. And I'd rename this tab as well so that we know that this one is about the wardrobe.
So I can just click on that tab name and type wardrobe in there.
Brilliant. Now I want one that's virtually the same, but for Narnia. So let's duplicate this again.
Okay, so if I click on my, if you click off
it and then right click onto the tab.
Let's try that again.
Wardrobe.
So we'll duplicate that. And what do we want to call
Wardrobe 1.
Pauline?
Yeah, let's call this Narnia.
Here we go. So we'll call this one Narnia.
And let's have a picture of Narnia.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go back to Lucy and Narnia and let's go for the snow option this time and we'll click and drag it in. Also worth noting that you can use the picture icon along the top. So if you've got any pictures in saved folders, if you're using an iPad and you want to access your camera roll, you can also use the picture icon along the top as well. And of course, you've got the Quick Picks image library available then as well.
So now as a class or in small groups, depending on the learner's needs, we can generate the key vocabulary about the two different settings. So if we go back to wardrobe, we might come up with words like dark, wood, explored. But actually for my more able children, I would expect them to be doing extended noun phrases, similes, alliterations. So we could have luscious fur coats and as soft as a bunny's tail, maybe. So now what I love about Board is that I can pretty quickly turn this into a word bank.
Turning it into a word bank, yes, really quick. Up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to go to this icon here and go to the option that says Create Word Banks. And you can see that what that's done is instantly put all of the words from our clicker board into a writing grid at the bottom of the document.
Yeah, so this gives the children working on Clicker an opportunity to use more adventurous vocabulary without stilting their flow of writing or worrying about spelling. And I would leave this showing on my whiteboard for the class to refer to as well. So this tool in Board just saves so much time. And as you get used to using Board, actually you could do this with the children in the lesson time. It's nothing that needs preparing as necessarily other than your pictures. So again, it's saving teacher time and you've instantly got your word banks. So that's great for extending vocabulary and ideas, but some children in the class will need support with structuring the actual diary entry. So I searched recount on Learning Grids and I like the recount frame word bank.
Yep, this one.
Yeah, brilliant. And actually I would remove the general words because looking at those, I think that's just going to be more confusing.
Okay, so we'll hop into edit and we're going to delete the general words tab by choosing that option.
Brilliant. And I want to insert two grids, one for the vocabulary for the wardrobe and one for the vocabulary for Narnia. And like many teachers, I've got tried and tested resources and lists of things that I use every year. So it's just finding those lists and I can copy and paste that in to make those new grids.
Okay, so we've just given our grid name wardrobe. Pauline's got her ready-made word list. You'll notice the words in brackets are the words that we want to keep within one cell. So I'm just going to copy these, go back over to Clicker and paste those into my first grid. And did you say you wanted to make a second grid, Pauline?
Yes, we have Narnia, isn't it? the next grid as
Okay,
well.
so what we'll do here is we'll add a new grid, and this one's going to be all about Narnia. So we'll pop the title in, we will go back over to our word list, and we'll get our second lot of words. Again, we're going to copy, paste into the box, and now we should have our 2 tabs with wardrobe and Narnia words.
And those word banks are so much more child friendly than my lists that I had originally. So yeah, much easier to use for them. So I would also print out those 2 tabs that we've created as a backup for the school internet, of course, but also for those children struggling with stamina, so that when they start flagging, so for example, it might be that they've talked about the wardrobe in their diary, but now they need Narnia. Just by giving them that Narnia grid might just spur them on to get, give them the incentive to finish their writing. And I actually don't think this is cheating. I think this is giving the children the tools to succeed and support and build stamina. And after time and practice, they won't need it anymore. So let's give it to them when they need it. So I think this shows that even if Learning Grids doesn't have the specific resources that you need, it's worth looking at what's on there, and quickly you can adapt them to suit your learners. And Clicker has so many quick and easy ways to make the resource work exactly how you want it to for your learners. I'd also suggest anybody listening to check Learning Grids frequently, because we put new sets on very regularly, and so they change and update as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Pauline. Some brilliant ideas there. Pauline mentioned printing. The print icon is along the top. So if you're wanting to print out any of these Clicker resources that we've made, go into the Clicker Set tab along the top, and you've got your print option. If, for example, you're working on a laptop and you're in a school that uses Clicker on multiple devices, as a teacher, we've created these resources today. I might want to share them to my learners' iPads or Chromebooks, ready for them to access in the lesson tomorrow. So to do that, if you go to the Save button, really quick way of doing this is using a shared platform. We know lots of schools use Google Drive, Google Classroom, OneDrive to share resources. So save the Clicker grid into that shared folder, and all of your learners will be able to access those Clicker grids when you want them to in the lesson that you've prepared. So I hope today has given you lots of ideas of how Clicker can be really quickly adapted to the topics that you might be teaching within your classrooms. Really, it's just a flavour of what Clicker can do. There's lots of teachers here from lots of different schools working with different cohorts of children. So hopefully it's given you all some quick and easy ideas for how Clicker can be adapted. If you're thinking of using Clicker in the future, I'm just going to add our license pricing onto our screen. Licenses are for 3 years. You can see that we start with a 1+1 license for £385 and then move all the way up to a school-wide license that lets you use Clicker on every device in school and also includes home access for teachers and children. So a great way of including home learning there with Clicker as well. If you do want to find out more about Clicker, I'd strongly suggest that you book in a one-to-one demonstration with us. We can really talk there about your needs and how Clicker might potentially be able to work in your school. If you'd like to book a demo, I'm going to open up a survey at the end asking for your feedback on this session, and you can just request a demo there with myself or one of the education team as well. If you've already got Clicker in school, don't forget to visit the training section of the website, where you can also book in a customer care meeting so we can make sure you're really using Clicker to its full advantage. So thank you very much for joining us. We will be sending out the recording link, as I mentioned. I'm going to close the webinar and a survey will open up. So please just spend a minute. It's really quick, just completing that for us. And it just leaves me to say, on behalf of Pauline and myself, thank you so much for joining us today. And we do hope that you enjoyed the webinar. So thank you and goodbye.